Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You, the listener, have handed us a fascinating and, frankly, a massive stack of sources today. We're focusing on one of the world's oldest and largest industries, textiles in India. But we aren't talking about the latest fashion trends. We are diving deep into the huge challenge and, well, the equally huge opportunity embedded in post-consumer textile waste.
It's a massive topic.
Yeah.
And it's one that connects everything from, global supply chains right down to your local municipal waste management.
Right.
India's textile sector is a titan. It blends this incredibly rich cultural heritage with modern industrialized production.
But that scale of production is creating a corresponding scale of waste. And it's straining cities, resources, the environment.
It really is.
Absolutely. And the problem isn't just, an old sweater here or there. It's a systemic breakdown in how we manage the materials we consume. So our mission today is to systematically unpack three things. First, the material complexities. Why is it so technically difficult to recycle a modern t-shirt? Second, the critical economic barriers that just discourage formal solutions. And third, the coordinated systemic solutions we need across policy, design, and practice.
Right, to move from just managing waste toward a true circular economy.
Exactly.
We have to get past just recycling a few bottles. We have to start rethinking how clothes are made and, I guess, how they're unmade. The magnitude of this problem, it just dictates that nothing less than a full end-to-end transformation is going to work.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the sheer scale. Just how big is the textile waste pile in India right now?
The numbers are, they're staggering. They immediately tell you this is a top-tier challenge.
Give us the headline figure.
The total estimated textile waste generated in India is roughly 7.8 million tons annually.
7.8 million tons. That is an enormous amount of material.
It is. And just to put that in context, that figure alone accounts for about 8.5% of all global textile waste.
So we're talking about mountains of fabric that were made to cover us, now literally covering our cities.
And if we look a little closer at where that waste comes from, it tells us something really important about, consumer behavior.
Okay.
When you break down those waste streams, post-consumer waste, the clothing and textiles, we all discard after using them. That's the largest single chunk. It's at 51%.
51%. So that's nearly 3.9 million tons coming straight from our own closets and homes. The biggest part of the problem is us.
It is. Factory scraps, what we call pre-consumer waste, that's about 42%. And then imported waste is the remaining 7%.
So this isn't some niche industrial issue. It's a household problem. I mean, the sources confirm that textiles now account for about 15% of municipal solid dry waste in Indian cities.
And that forces us to look beyond just the volume and examine the technical challenge that's embedded within that volume, which is the fibers themselves.
This is where we get into the material science, because not all fabric is created equal. We've got three main types, right? And they behave very differently when we throw them away.
Right. So on one side, you have the natural fibers. That's your cotton, linen, wool, silk.
The traditional stuff.
Exactly. They're sourced from nature. They are biodegradable. And that's good, but a crucial point people often miss is that decomposition in a modern landfill is still incredibly slow.
Yeah.
There's just not enough air and moisture.
Okay, so that's one category. Then on the other extreme, you have the synthetic fibers.
The polyesters, the nylons, acrylics, these are all derived from petrochemicals. They're essentially plastic.
So non-biodegradable.
Completely. They're incredibly durable, which is great when you're wearing them, but it's terrible for disposal. They resist natural breakdown, and as they weather over time, they become a major contributor to microplastic pollution.
But the real technical hurdle, the reason we can't just throw all our old clothes into some magic recycling machine, is the third category, the blended fabrics.
Blended fabrics are, you could almost say, the villain of this story. Not because they're inherently bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they give us the stretch, the durability, the moisture wicking that we all expect now. But they critically complicate recycling.
So why, technically, is a 50-50 cotton-poly blend so much worse than just 100% cotton?
Well, think of it like trying to perfectly unbake a cake.
Okay.
Cotton is a cellulose polymer. Polyester is a plastic polymer. They need completely different chemical and physical processes to break down and recover.
And once they're twisted together in a thread...
Once they're woven or even chemically bonded, separating them without just destroying the fiber quality becomes incredibly difficult or expensive or, right now it's pretty much impossible at scale.
So the rise of fast fashion, which relies so heavily on these cheap, blended, high-performance fabrics, has directly engineered garments to be less recyclable.
Yes. It's condemned millions of tons of clothing to landfills for centuries. That's the crux of the technical problem.
And once you understand that technical lock, you realize the whole system faces these enormous practical and economic hurdles.
Which brings us to those practical issues. Even if we could magically separate the fibers, the infrastructure just isn't there to collect the waste properly in the first place.
Right.
Municipal waste systems, they rarely, if ever, segregate textiles at the source. It all just gets mixed in together.
Which makes that first step, sorting, just a nightmare.
Exactly. It's laborious, it's expensive, it's prone to error. You have to sort by fiber type, by color, and you have to deal with contamination, dirt, sweat, chemicals.
And this is where the economics of it all just completely fall apart for any formal legal recycling business. This is the central flaw.
This is the critical commercial barrier. Our sources highlight this massive, unsustainable economic imbalance. The cost of sorting textile waste alone? It's estimated at 45 to 50 rupees per kilogram.
Wait, hang on. 45 to 50 rupees just to sort 1 kilogram.
Yes, just for the labor and the infrastructure to identify and separate that material. Now, compare that to the resale value of the sorted waste.
Which is what?
It's incredibly low, only about 8 to 12 rupees per kilogram.
So you're telling me that for every single kilogram of textile waste I formally sort, I am losing, on average, 35 to 40 rupees before I even think about rent or energy costs.
Precisely. How can any formal business model survive that? That huge deficit just kills any commercial incentive.
It's impossible.
It is. Formal operations can't compete with that economic reality, especially when the recycled fibers they do manage to produce often fall short of the quality standards you need for new apparel.
Which limits demand and keeps the value depressed. It's a vicious cycle.
It is. The blending problem lowers the material quality, the sorting problem drives up the cost, the low quality limits the demand, and the lack of profit means the infrastructure deficit stays in place. So large-scale recycling facilities remain few and far between.
And while the environment pays the price methane from landfills, microplastics, there's a social cost too.
A huge social cost. The people currently handling this waste are in the informal sector. It's primarily waste pickers and sorters, often women. And without formal systems, they operate without social protections, without fair wages, without proper safety gear.
So if the technical complexity is the lock and the negative economics is the failure point, the solution can't just be market-driven right now. It has to be top-down. It has to start with policy.
Policy interventions are urgent. India needs dedicated textile waste management rules, something structured very similarly to how they manage plastic and e-waste.
To define who's responsible for what.
Yes. The rules have to define mandatory roles for everyone, producers, retailers, recyclers, and ensure mandatory reporting and traceability right across the supply chain.
And the most important piece of that puzzle seems to be extended producer responsibility, or EPR. For the listener who might not know, what does that mean in practice for a fashion brand?
EPR is critical. It shifts the financial and logistical burden of end-of-life processing back onto the brands and manufacturers who designed and sold the product in the first place.
So it makes waste management a business cost, not a public one.
Exactly. A brand that designs a T-shirt also has to be financially responsible for funding the collection, the sorting, and the processing of that T-shirt when you discard it 5 years later.
That's a huge shift. I noticed the sources specifically call for differential obligations under EPR. That's a fascinating detail.
It is, and it's smart. It means imposing a higher level of financial or processing responsibility, specifically on fast fashion brands.
Why?
Well, since they contribute disproportionately to the volume of low durability, highly blended waste, the differential obligation ensures the brands causing the most strain are the ones subsidizing the recycling ecosystem the most.
That's a really clever way to target the source of the problem. What other fiscal levers do we need?
We need specific incentives, like GST reduction on recycled yarns and upcycled products. And conversely, we need clear disincentives.
Like what?
Like an environmental fee on those highly non-recyclable blended fabrics that cause all the trouble. It makes designing with a single material, a monomaterial, immediately more attractive.
Makes sense.
And finally, the urban local bodies. They have to formally recognize textiles as a separate dry waste stream. That's fundamental for setting up dedicated collection.
So policy sets the rules, but before a garment even hits the market, we have to look at the design. Because, as the sources emphasize, design decisions determine 80 to 90% of a product's environmental impact.
Design is really the birthplace of circularity. It's all about designing for circularity.
So what does that look like in practice?
The most practical change is a dramatic shift toward monomaterial garments. 100% cotton, 100% polyester, 100% wool. If you solve the blending problem at the design stage, you immediately remove the technical lock.
What about the small details? The buttons, the sequins?
Exactly. Designers have to avoid hard-to-remove accessories. Mixed plastic and metal buttons, heavy sequins, metallic coatings. Those small things instantly contaminate the material stream.
And what about just making things last longer?
That's key. Designing for longevity, not disposability. Stronger seams, color-fast dyes, neutral base colors that are suitable for future reuse or re-dyeing.
So once policy mandates change and design creates a recyclable garment, how does that material actually get recovered? What are the technologies that get us over that economic hurdle?
There are a few key methods, moving from old school to more advanced tech. You have mechanical recycling.
Which is?
It's basically the physical shredding of textiles into fibers. It's cost-effective, but it tends to produce shorter, coarser yarns. So it's often limited to things like insulation or industrial products.
And then there's the more exciting advancement, chemical recycling.
Chemical recycling is the real game changer. It means breaking down the fibers, the cellulose in cotton or the polymers in polyester, right back to their original chemical components.
Which means you can make new fiber from them.
You can regenerate high-quality material that is virtually identical to virgin fiber, and that solves the quality problem.
But you still have that initial sorting cost. That's still the bottleneck.
It is, which is why technology needs to address the front end too, and that's where emerging tech comes in, specifically AI-enabled sorting.
Using cameras and computers to do the job.
Exactly. Using computer vision and spectroscopy, machines can rapidly and accurately identify fiber composition. They can separate tons of clothing far faster and more consistently than human labor. And that dramatically reduces that prohibitive 45 to 50 rupee sorting cost.
Which finally makes the whole process commercially viable.
And we shouldn't forget a really practical lower-cost pathway, turning textile waste into non-woven materials for industrial use, things like car interiors or insulation. That approach bypasses the high-quality apparel standards and can be cheaper than using virgin fibers.
Okay, so that's the supply side transformation. But let's shift to the demand side. Even the best policies and tech will fail if consumers aren't participating. What changes are needed in our own practices?
It has to start with shifting our core consumption habits, moving from impulsive buying to, need-based consumption.
And thinking differently about value.
Yes, we need to promote cost-per-use thinking, asking yourself to calculate the durability and longevity of a garment before you buy it, not just the initial sticker price.
And we need better, more attractive options for keeping clothes in use for longer.
Absolutely. Strengthening the whole reuse ecosystem is critical. That means expanding secondhand markets, both online and offline. It means promoting rental and subscription models and establishing community-level repair cafes and tailoring hubs.
Making repair easy and accessible is key.
And desirable. And crucially, as you said, we have to get clothing out of the general rubbish bin.
So formalize disposal.
Disposal practices must be formalized. We need textiles to move into designated channels, separate textile bins at the community level, or incentivized take-back schemes offered by major retailers.
I find the connection between this whole challenge and India's traditional crafts to be the most compelling part of the solution. It links modern sustainability with ancient wisdom.
This is where circularity meets heritage, and it creates these immediate, high-value livelihood opportunities. Traditional arts and community crafts in India are absolute masters of giving textile waste a powerful new life.
Tell us more about those specific crafts.
We're talking about regional crafts like kantha, where layers of old cotton saris are stitched together to create these beautiful, durable quilts. Or gudri, a similar technique for bedding. And chindi rugs, where strips of fabric scraps are woven or braided into vibrant floor coverings.
So this isn't just art, it's decentralized, high-value upcycling. It immediately creates a market for what was previously low-value waste material.
Precisely. It creates market and livelihood opportunities, specifically for women, for artisans, and for craft clusters, integrating them into the green economy.
Which brings us to the final, crucial social step, formalizing the informal sector.
The waste pickers, the kabadiwalas. The people currently managing this immense burden with almost no recognition.
They're the backbone of the current recovery system.
They are. And they have to be formally integrated. This means providing them with dignity, social security, proper protective equipment, and critically fair pricing mechanisms for the materials they collect.
And what about skill training?
Yes. They need training on sophisticated fiber identification and quality sorting. These are skills that increase the value of the materials they handle and allow them to participate in that high-tech recycling stream we just discussed.
So it moves them from being marginalized workers to recognized environmental stewards.
And it ensures the value created by this new circularity is shared inclusively.
This has been a complete journey from the technical challenges in blended fabrics all the way to the systemic changes needed across policy, design, and creating livelihoods. If we synthesize everything, solving post-consumer textile waste in India really requires an end-to-end transformation.
It demands coordinated action all at once.
Yeah.
When you fix the design, mandate the collection through EPR, formalize the labor, and invest in the technology, the benefits become immense. Environmentally, you reduce the landfill burden and your dependence on water-intensive virgin fibers. Economically, you spur all these new business models, rental, repair, resale, and you can support export growth of high-quality recycled material.
And socially, you create inclusive green jobs and formal inclusion for the marginalized workers who are already doing the really difficult recovery work. It's an approach that integrates heritage crafts with modern sustainability goals.
Exactly. And ultimately, the future of textiles, it doesn't lie in how cheaply or how fast fashion is produced. It lies in how long fabrics stay in use, how intelligently they are recovered, and most importantly, how inclusively that resulting economic value is shared across society.
That's a challenge that honors economy, ecology, and equity all at once.
It transforms a massive environmental burden into material wealth.
That's a powerful final thought. The scale of the challenge in India really does demand a scale of solution that could be truly world-leading. Thank you for guiding us through this essential material, and thank you, the listener, for tuning in to the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.